I'm just confirming that we don't see our chair currently, right? Okay,
Correct.
she told me she might be late.
Okay, we do
So-
have a quorum if you would like to start.
Let's do it. All right, good morning, commissioners, and good morning, Michigan. As chair of the commission, I called it, as vice chair of the commission. I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order at 10 o'clock. This Zoom webinar is being live streamed on YouTube on the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission YouTube channel. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting MI. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. Closed captioning, ASL interpretation, and Spanish, Arabic, and Bengali translation services will be provided for effective participation in this meeting. Email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for additional viewing options or details on accessing language translation services for this meeting. People with disabilities needing other specific accommodations should also contact redistricting@michigan.gov. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at www.michigan.gov/MICRC for viewing at a later date. Nice new website, by the way. This meeting is also being transcribed, and those closed caption transcripts will be made available and posted on the michigan.gov/MICRC website, along with written public comment submissions. There is also a public comment portal that may be accessed by visiting michigan.gov/MICRC. This portal can be utilized to post maps and comments, which can be viewed by both the commission and the public. Members of the media who may have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Edward Woods III, Communications and Outreach Director for the Commission at woodse3@michigan.gov or 517-331-6309. For the purposes of the public watching and the public record, I will turn to Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Good morning, commissioners. Please stay present when I call your name. Because we are all attending today's meeting remotely, please also announce where you are attending from by stating your city, county, or township. I will start on Doug Clark.
Present, and I'm joining the meeting today from Huntington Beach, California.
Juanita Curry.
Present and attending the meeting remotely from Detroit, Michigan.
Anthony Eade.
Good morning. Present and remotely attending from Detroit, Michigan.
Brittany Kellum. Rhonda Lang. Steve Lett.
Present, attending from Lee County, Florida.
Cynthia Orton.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
MC Rothorn.
Present, attending remotely from Lansing, Michigan.
Rebecca Satella.
Present, attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan.
Janice Follett.
Present, attending from Highland Township, Michigan.
Erin Wagner.
Present, attending remotely from Lansing, Michigan.
Richard Weiss.
Present, attending remotely from Saginaw Township, Saginaw, Michigan.
Dustin Witches. Dustin, if you're talking, we can't hear you right now.
No, sorry, I accidentally just left and came back. I'm present, attending from Howell, Michigan.
Perfect, thank you. 11 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you, Ms.
Secretary?
White. Yep.
I want to acknowledge that if you ask if Commissioner Kellum is present, she might be here now.
Thank you.
just
I
joined.
will return to Commissioner Kellum.
Present and attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan. Good morning.
Good morning. 12 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you. All right, as a reminder to the public watching, you can view the agenda at www.michigan.gov/MICRC. I will now entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Witches,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Lett. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion or any amendments to the meeting agenda? Commissioner Eade?
Yes, I'd like to motion to add resolution 2022-0217 to the agenda.
Okay. Could you say the number again? It was, I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
Yes, resolution 2022.02.17. Resolution authorize consent judgment terms in Wagner v. MICRC.
Okay. Do we have a second for that amendment?
Second.
So we have a motion to amend by Commissioner Eid, seconded by Commissioner Lett, to add agenda or resolution 200217, authorized consent judgment in Wagner versus MICRC. Any discussion or debate on that amendment? Okay, we can go ahead and vote on that amendment at this time. All in favor of amending the agenda to add resolution. And I know you didn't specify where you want it to go, Anthony, but I'm just going to put it as 6C. Is that acceptable? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the ayes prevail and the amendment to the agenda is adopted. Are there any additional amendments? So I will make an amendment to request to amend the Executive Director Hammersmith, what was the item you wanted to add with respect to the Robert Half agreement? I just want to make sure I understand.
It would just be an amendment to that resolution, so we can address that, I believe, when we get there.
Okay. All right. Anything else we need to add to the agenda? I know we had some things come up overnight. All right, Commissioner Witches, I see you.
Last meeting, I did request something be added into the agenda for us to talk about ours getting a 7% raise to combat inflation.
It's actually on there.
I must have missed it.
Yep, it's down after the recess under the Glenn Gariff group. There's a item on there.
Oh, got it. Sorry.
Yep, no worries. All right, so let's move back to the primary motion, which is the motion to approve the meeting agenda as amended. Motion made by Commissioner Witches, seconded by Commissioner Lett. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. All right, the ayes prevail and the agenda is adopted. Thank you, everybody. All right, at this point, we're going to begin the public comment pertaining to agenda topics portion of our meeting. Hearing no objection, we will proceed with public comments. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to provide live remote public commentary to the commission will now be allowed to do so. I will call your name and our staff will unmute you. If you are on the computer, you'll be prompted by the Zoom app to unmute your microphone and speak. If you're on the phone, a voice will say that the host would like you to speak and prompt you to press *6 to unmute. I will call on you by your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. Also, please note that if you experience technical or audio issues, or if we do not hear from you for 3 to 5 seconds, we will move on to the next person in line and return to you after they are done speaking. If your audio still does not work, you can email redistricting@michigan.gov and we will help you troubleshoot so you can participate during the next public comment period at a later meeting. You will have 1 minute to address the commission. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. First in line to provide public comment is Mr. James Gallant. Please allow a moment for our staff to unmute you.
Oh, this is James Gallant, Marquette. These are my opinions. I would ask the commission to please consider expanding the public comment at the meetings now back to the 2 and probably to 3 minutes. You know, we'll be looking at 3 minutes to be standard across the Open Meetings Act. And I would ask this commission to vote to request that Commissioner Lang would expand upon her sanctioning of the chair and the bullying charges and what she exactly meant by that. Because, you know, bullying is somebody overstepped their authority and somebody's rights got violated. Except for, you know, you folks' side agreements is what allows that to continue. And it's still bullying, is the making, you know, having discussion before a motion. That's allowing.
Thank you for addressing the commission, Mr. Gallant. Next in line is Anthony Scannell.
Madam Chair, Mr. Gallant had, I believe, about 10 seconds left. I don't know if his signal cut out or he's experiencing technical difficulties. Mr. Gallant, can you hear us? Well, unfortunately, we can no longer hear you. It appears your audio may have cut out. So per your instruction, Madam Chair, we will move on to the next participant.
Okay. All right, if he happens to call back, I have no problem putting him back on and letting him finish this additional 10 seconds. So just let me know if that happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Mr. Scannell.
Good morning, MICRC. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's happened to me before. I've been cut off, and sadly, I didn't get any time reclaimed. But hey, it's water under the bridge. But I see you missed on the agenda the 7%. Wow, I'd like 7%, but I'm missing on the agenda. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's just in the fine print. For each plan adopted, this is bullet point 16 in your amendment. For each plan adopted, the commission shall issue a report that explains the basis on which the commission made its decisions in achieving compliance with the plan requirements. So is Ms. Reinhardt going to be explaining your decision-making basis in the back room, and then you're just going to approve it in the speed of night, by the speed of light, dark and night, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm curious about, this explanatory report. I don't see how this hasn't come up yet. You talked about raises, rules, disbandment, everything. So also, I wish all the litigants against you success, and I wish you success in filling your FOIA requests.
Thank you, Mr. Scannell. Next in line is Howard Barron.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. So my name is Howard Barron, a VMP volunteer. On February 10th, you discussed your term of office. Paragraph 18 says, the term of the commission shall expire once the commission has completed its obligation for a census cycle, but not before any judicial review of the redistricting plan is complete. As Commissioner Wishes said, the objective phrase is census cycle. Your term expires when the census cycle will be completed in November 2030, the final time your maps will be used. In a few months, the commission should go dormant, keeping only a skeleton staff and your lawyers on retainer. Also realize another state might ask you to visit them to provide your redistricting expertise. From 2017 to 2021, both VMP and this commission actively consulted with the 2010 commissioners from both California and Arizona.
Thank you for addressing the commission. Next in line is Sonia Patrick.
A participant is not present.
Okay, and did Mr. Gallant call back in by any chance?
He did. I will prompt him to unmute.
Okay.
Oh, James Gallen again. Sorry about that. My phone shut off. And but as I was saying, please consider expanding the comment time, because now you only got a few people participating from now on, and they go back to the regular meeting schedules like it was before, and go to 3 minutes, because that's be fair. And also, I would ask you to please consider requesting that Commissioner Lang would expand upon her definition of bullying when she went for the.
Thank you, Mr. Gallant. That concludes our public comment. However, I would like to mention that all emailed and mailed public comment is provided to the commission before each meeting, and commissioners also review the public comment portal on our www.michigan.org/MICRC website on a regular basis. We appreciate everyone who, excuse me, provides public comment in whatever way they choose to do so, and invite you to keep sharing your thoughts, especially if you would like to share ways that you think the MICRC processes or procedures are good, or ways that they could have been more effective. First item on our agenda is unfinished business agenda item 5A, contract change notice for Federal Compliance LLC, which was discussed at our last meeting. Without objection, I will ask Executive Director Hammersmith to present this agenda item. Please proceed, Ms. Hammersmith.
Good morning, commissioners. I hope you're doing well today. Before you is a resolution 2022-0210. I see I have a typo on that. Please accept Scrivener's correction there. But the issue is extending these contracts to the point where we hope that litigation might be complete for the current 2-year cycle and also the 4-year cycle coming up. So it would cover 2022 and 2024. We have an option on the contract to extend through February 28th, 2024. That's 2 one-year options to extend. I think it would make sense to also approve a useful life extension to this contract through September 30th, 2025. It would get the commission through that fiscal year. It would also get through the 2024 election cycle. So the first 2 election cycles might be most likely to bring litigation. We'll also update the staff contact information for that contract. At the present time, we're including both Edward and myself, so we're both in the communication loop with all the consultants. So that is the resolution put before you. It's 2022-0210.
Any questions or comments for our executive director? If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2022-0210, contract change notice for federal compliance.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Weiss. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Hearing none, is moved and seconded to approve resolution 2022-0210, contract change notice for federal compliance LLC. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. And Commissioner Villette, if you could just verbally indicate an aye or a nay. I didn't see your hand go up on either.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. All right,
As
the
well as
ayes.
Commissioner Wagner, too, please.
Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Wagner, could you indicate your vote?
Commissioner Wagner, if you're speaking, we're unable to hear you. Commissioner Wagner may be experiencing technical difficulties. I'll connect with her offline.
Okay. All right. So the ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. Next on our agenda is unfinished business item 5B, contract change notice for election data services. Without objection, I will ask Executive Director Hammersmith to present this item. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Ms. Hammersmith.
The EDS contract would mirror then the federal compliance. Both of these were initiated at the same time, and the resolution asks again to extend through February 28th, 2024, initiating those 2 one-year provisions, and then approve a useful life extension through September 30, 2025, and update the staff contact information.
Okay, any questions for Executive Director? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2022-0211, contract change notice for election data services.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made by Commissioner Witches, seconded by Commissioner Lett. Any discussion or debate on the motion? It is moved and seconded to approve resolution 2022-0211, contract change notice for election data services. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and Janice, I see you too. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, and then Commissioner Wagner, you're just gonna see if you can verbally indicate again.
She had to step away for a moment.
Okay, all right. All right, the ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. Next on our agenda is new business item 6A, budget recommendations. Without objection, I will ask Executive Director Hammersmith to present this item. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Ms. Hammersmith.
So I've presented some recommendations on the budget. What we have quickly discovered is our litigation contract amounts are inadequate for the litigation that is happening at the present time, and as we anticipate going forward. So if you look at the column noted as recommended adjustments, it's the second column from the right. I'm recommending we reduce staff salaries by just over 103,000 due to General Counsel leaving her position at the end of this week, actually tomorrow. I have reduced $11,376 in travel costs. We had that amount in hotel rooms that were billed to the commission, and I have reassessed those to EDS and federal compliance in their help with the mapping process. We did book rooms for them because we wanted them to be able to get the state rate. So the Legislative Services Bureau couldn't separate those bills. So we will do an accounting adjustment, but again, it's to remove $11,376 from the commissioner's travel and put that travel expense into EDS and federal compliance. Going down the list, then when you get into the consultants, I am recommending adding $250,000 to each of the litigation and local counsel contracts. The local counsel has utilized 71% of its budget. So this month of February, there's a lot of activity with litigation. I anticipate that a good share of what is remaining in the contract will be utilized. So what this does to the budget, again, is about a net $400,000 increase in the budget. If you can see, if you go all the way to the left and look down at the bottom, you can see our total expenses per the budget less the appropriation. Initially, we had an $826,900 shortfall. With these adjustments, just under $400,000, this budget shortfall will be a little over $1.2 million. Because of this, we are in active conversation with how best to approach the legislature on requesting these funds. And I will anticipate the first question: how do we know how much we're going to need for litigation? And the answer is we don't know. This is a best guess, depending on where we are right now versus where we may be in the future. So is this a one and done? I hope it is. But certainly if litigation continues, those costs will be increased, and we may have to go back to the legislature again to cover those costs. So I would entertain any questions you might have on the budget as a whole, and then we'll look briefly at the resolutions addressing this.
Okay, any questions? All right, I'm not seeing any questions right now. Oh, there we go, Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve the budget changes that Sue Ann just presented to us.
Second.
Okay, so we actually have several separate resolutions. So why don't I go through them, and then Doug, if you're in favor, you can make a motion on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion or a resolution 2022-0213 to approve the First Amendment to the Baker-Hostetler agreement. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. So let's go back. The first one is 2022-0212, approve the Second Amendment for the Fink Bresic PLLC contract. I would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Weiss, to adopt resolution 2022-0212, approval of the Second Amendment for the Fink Bresic PLLC contract. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? Hearing none, it is moved and seconded to adopt the resolution 2022-0212, approved Second Amendment for Fink Bresic contract. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. And I acknowledge you, Janice. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. And Aaron Wagner, I see you on the phone, if you could verbally indicate. We can't hear you, Aaron, if you're speaking.
She may still be away.
Okay. All right. It is the ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-0213, approval of First Amendment for Baker-Hostetler contract.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Weiss. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? All right, it's moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2022-0213, approval of First Amendment for Baker Hostetler contract. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Commissioner Wagner, just checking to see if you're available. Okay, it sounds like she is still away from the computer. So the ayes prevail and the resolution is adopted. I will entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-0214. Executive Director Hammerstone.
This is the one resolution that I would like to ask for an amendment.
Okay.
Currently, our paralegal is capped at 20 hours per week due to the backlog in the FOIAs. And prior to this time, she was not assisting with FOIA. She was only assisting with research for litigation. So we have this backlog of FOIAs. MDOS has requested that assistance from the commission in their very generous agreement to take over the FOIAs for the commission. So I think that's the least that we can do is try to help them. Initially at 20 hours per week, this contract, the current contract amount would have lasted through September. Obviously, if we double the hours over the next quarter, it will probably shorten the length of the contract into maybe June 30th, or it may extend further depending on the level of the work. But right now there is a backlog and that extra help is needed. So we'd like to also add to this resolution to amend the hours from up to 20 hours per week to up to 40 hours per week.
I would move to amend the contract from 20 to 40 hours per week.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Clark. So we have a motion and a motion by Commissioner Lett to amend the underlying Robert Half contract for paralegal services to permit up to 40 hours a week instead of 20 hours per week, seconded by Commissioner Clark. General Counsel, did you have a comment on this?
I did. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good morning to the commission today. So just to clarify, the addition of the hours, there is not a FOIA backlog. The two remaining productions relative to email records should go out before my tenure ends tomorrow. I think what the executive director is referring to is related to the FOIA litigation, which is almost 4,000 documents that we received last Thursday or Friday. So in my concern, and I know I sent emails yesterday to Robert Half, and perhaps the executive director received responses to those. I did not. Was the concern was whether extending those hours up to the 40 hours would require additional changes in that purchase order. And again, I haven't received verification on that at all yet, but I just wanted to highlight those two issues for the commission's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, General Counsel. Executive Director.
I just also want to mention that we're not going to do anything that triggers benefits. So if we have to back it off, we will. But again, the up to 40 would allow for that flexibility.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to amend resolution 2022-0214 with respect to Robert Half Government Paralegal Services to increase the amount of time permissible up to 40 hours. Any discussion or debate on that motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I apologize for the interruption. Just for clarification purposes, though, the executive director received confirmation that going up to 40 hours, modifying the contract terms was acceptable to the vendor, or no? Because I have not received that confirmation.
She's saying she has not received confirmation.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion or debate on the amendment? All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the amendment is adopted. At this point, we will move back to the main resolution, which is 2022-0315, 0214, Robert Half, Government Paralegal Services as amended. All in favor of adopting that resolution, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Janice, could you, thank you. Thank you. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. All right, the resolution is adopted. Moving on to the next item on our agenda. We have, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-0215, adopt budget recommendations for the 2022 fiscal year.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Witches. Is there any discussion or debate on the resolution? Commissioner Villette? Is that a mistake?
Yes.
Okay. I saw it go up and down, up and down. All right, all in favor.
That was early voting.
Yes, early voting. All in favor of adopting resolution 2022-0215, adopt budget recommendations for the 2022 fiscal year. Raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the resolution is adopted. All right. All right, next on our agenda is, I'm missing one here. Amendments to the policies and procedures. I will hand that over to Sue Hammersmith if there are no objections. Executive Director Hammersmith, would you like to proceed?
Yes. So with our general counsel leaving, I started to look through the policies and procedures, and nearly every policy and procedure references general counsel in some respect. And should a future commission also have a general counsel, it's probably important to leave that in. So what I did was create a resolution 2022-0216 that acknowledges the term shall refer to the responsibilities of the position versus in a specific employee after February 25th. And it will include what Fink Bresic is doing for the commission, and that is resolving any legal issues that may arise. And also acknowledges that the Michigan Department of State is serving as the FOIA or Public Records Coordinator and in the role of parliamentarian. Also, we felt it was important to amend the FOIA policies. Those are now on Fink Bresic's desk for their review. The staff has reviewed and made several changes to those policies, and we are awaiting Fink Bresic's response then, and we'll have that on the next meeting agenda for the commission to discuss. Additionally, there are a few amendments that will be required to the rules of procedure. And as you know, the commission needs 3-day notice in order to amend the rules of procedure. So I went ahead and created a resolution that can be utilized at the next meeting on March 10th, but that would show after the FOIA policies are adopted, what changes could be made to the rules of procedure. So they are in sync with each other. So just one resolution here for approval and letting you know that FOIA procedures and processes and the written summary and the form are all in review, and we'll bring those back next time with a resolution to also amend the rules of procedure.
Sorry, I was on mute. Any questions for Ms. Hammersmith? All right, so just to clarify, Executive Director, the resolution is for consideration at the next meeting so that we have time to go over the policy changes. Is that accurate?
We have one resolution for consideration on March 10th. We also have resolution 2022-0216 that can, in general, clarify what our policies refer to when they refer to general counsel and the duties or the responsibilities of that position.
Okay, so you're looking to have that one adopted today?
Correct,
Okay.
the 2022-0216.
16, yeah, all right, so I have that one open. So I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2022-0216, policy procedures and updates.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Curry. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Lett and Commissioner Curry to adopt resolution 2022-0216, policies and procedures update. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the resolution is adopted. All right. All right, so at this point, we have a little bit more time before we're supposed to go into closed session at 11 a.m. So I'm going to jump into our next agenda item, and we'll just go as far as we can up until 11 o'clock, and then we'll go back to the closed session. All right, so we have the agenda item added by Commissioner Eid, which is 6C, consideration of the resolution 2022-0217. Commissioner Eid, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, well,
You can just make a motion if you want to just do that instead, whichever way.
yes, I don't really have much to say about it. General Counsel, do you have anything you want to say about this?
General Counsel, did you have anything to add?
Thank you so much. Yes, the proposed resolution would authorize a consent judgment. The terms are contained within, which was negotiated between, on your behalf between the parties. It is of course up to the commission whether to adopt the terms or not. I would also like to highlight that Michigan Department of State, given that they will be processing those records, was also consulted in regard to those terms and are also in agreement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this point, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2022-0217, resolution to authorize consent judgment terms in Wagner versus MICRC.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Clark. So we've had any discussion or debate on the resolution? Commissioner Lett?
Yes, thank you. I've reviewed the resolution, or the agreement of the litigation, and it appears to me to be equitable. I think it resolves it on a fair basis for both the plaintiff and the defendant being us, and it should resolve it. I'm assuming that with the increase in the Robert Half worker, that we should be able to meet it without any further issues, and I would urge everybody to vote in its favor.
Any additional comments on the resolution? All right, all in favor of adopting resolution 2022-0217, resolution to authorize consent judgment terms in Wagner versus MICRC, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the resolution is adopted. All right, at this point, we're going to move on to new business agenda item 6E, Glenn Gariff Group, Michigan Voter Survey. And actually, it looked like we had a guest on this. Edward, do we have our guest available on this, or do we need to wait?
He's scheduled to come, Commissioner Zatella, at 12:15.
Okay.
So he'll be there at that time.
Okay, so we will jump over that item, and then we will go on to new business agenda item 6F, commission salary changes. And Commissioner Witches in particular, you asked for this agenda item, so I will invite you or any other commissioner who's interested in speaking on it to go ahead and share your thoughts.
Sure. So first off, I apologize. I didn't scroll down far enough when I was looking at the agenda, but my basic thoughts were that we extended salary increases to staff to combat inflation or the current state of the economy currently. And I feel like that should be awarded to all of us, especially for some of us who have this as our only current salary at this particular point in time. That's basically all I have to say about it. It's of course up to all of us as a body and not just me, but if anyone wants to say anything about it, go ahead. That's how I feel about it, and I'll vote in favor for it. But again, I'll stand by what everyone else says.
Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, my opinion on this is that I don't believe we should have a salary increase based on our workloads diminishing at this point in time. And I don't think it's a prudent thing to do at this point.
Any additional comments? Commissioner Rothorn?
I guess I also am not in favor of the 7% increase. I don't think we should reduce our salary. I think we should keep the salary and at the level we're at, as long as we're employed. But I think, but I think the idea that we have commissioners who want to reduce our salary, we have commissioners that want to increase it. I feel like keeping it the same at this point feels like a good compromise.
Any additional comments? Commissioner Kellum?
I would support the increase based upon what Commissioner Witches said, in light of the fact that, just to restate what he said, that some of us, this is their sole employment at the moment, and there is inflation. So I would actually support Commissioner Witches' suggestion based upon his reasoning. Thank you, Commissioner Witches.
All right, so it looks like everybody else is done commenting, so I'm going to add my 2 cents. Just from a business perspective, businesses are doing salary reviews at this point, and the inflation rate is historically high, at least in my lifetime, where I've been an adult enough to be aware of it, I should say. So my understanding is the inflation rate right now is 5.9, which is quite high and is impacting people, and that by failing to increase the salaries, we're effectively reducing our salaries because of the inflationary rate. So I'm certainly in favor of making that adjustment. I think it's fair to raise it 7% when the inflation rate is about 6%. So those are my thoughts. Commissioner Kellum.
And I just wanted to quickly add, some of us have to support households. Some of us are not able to have a spouse or someone else to. I'm not getting into anyone's financial situation, but just bringing awareness to, many commissioners are coming from a variety of backgrounds. That's it.
All right, so I would consider a motion if we have someone interested in making a motion at this point, and we can just go ahead and vote on it.
I'll move that we increase commissioner salaries by 7%.
Okay, do we have a second? Commissioner Curry, I see that you have seconded it. So we have a motion by Commissioner Witches to raise commissioner salaries, and it is seconded by Commissioner Curry. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Roll call, please.
Yeah, we can do a roll call. Ms. Reinhardt, could you do a roll call for this?
Absolutely. Commissioners, please indicate your support of the motion with a yes or a no vote. I will call on commissioners in alphabetical order, starting with Rebecca Satella.
Yes.
Janice Follett.
Yes.
Richard Weiss.
No.
Dustin Witches.
Yes.
Doug Clark.
No.
Juanita Curry.
Yes.
Anthony Eade.
I think we skipped Doug.
No, we got Doug.
Oh, okay. I'll say yes.
Brittany Kellum.
Yes.
Steve Lett.
Yes.
Cynthia Orton.
No.
MC Rothorn.
Yes.
By a vote of 8 yes to 3 no, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, at this point, we're going to move on to the next few items on our agenda, try to move through those. First is approval of the meeting minutes from the February 10th meeting held via Zoom. These draft minutes were provided to the commission prior to this meeting and are posted on the website. Are there any edits to the meeting minutes from February 10, 2022? All right, see. Did you say something, Commissioner Witches?
Move to adopt.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Witches to adopt the meeting minutes from February 10, 2022. Do we have a second? Commissioner Curry has seconded that motion. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the meeting minutes are adopted. All right, at this point, we're going to move on to staff reports. Executive Director, I think we'll take your staff report and then we will see where we're at in terms of time. So Executive Director Hammersmith, please proceed.
I will be quick. First, I want to acknowledge that this is our General Counsel, Julianne Pastula's last meeting. I want to thank her for her year plus of service and wish her well in whatever future endeavors she chooses to go forward with. I want to also mention that resolutions 2022 02, 05 through 09 were provided based on motions that were made after resolutions were produced prior to the last meeting. So I've sent those out and those will, I believe, are already posted to the website. And then for April meeting locations, the commission has approved the dates. They've not approved the locations. For April 14th, Cadillac Place of Detroit, and April 28th for the AG Auditorium in Lansing. So if the chair could ask for a motion to approve those locations, that would end my report.
Thank you, Executive Director. So I would entertain a motion to approve setting our meeting locations at the Cadillac Place in Detroit on April 14th and the AG Auditorium in Lansing on April 28th.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Witches, seconded by Commissioner Curry. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. Thank you, Ms. Hammersmith. General Counsel, did you have a report?
I do not, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
All right. Without objection, I'll ask our Communications and Outreach Director, Edward Woods III, to provide a report. Please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Teller. Just want to let the commission know that we appreciate you doing these media interviews and requests. We have Politically Speaking, as you know, that took off last week. And want to thank Commissioner Zatella, Commissioner Eid, and Commissioner Witches for that as well. The website, really want to give a shout out to the staff at MDOS, and particularly Nelson, for the changeover. We were one of the first ones to go over the changeover with the website and the platform. And so you've seen that as well. So just want to give a shout out to Nelson for helping us with that and basically doing a yeoman's effort in terms of getting that to carry over. And then last but not least, we wanted to just provide a short video to thank Julianne Pastula as our general counsel that we kind of put together just to say thank you. And so if you will allow me, I'll share it at this time.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Brought a tear to my eye.
Edward, are you going to post that so that everybody can have a copy?
Yep.
Of course, Commissioner-elect. Of course, of course. I think that'll be a better win than what the Spartans are providing us at this moment.
Let's not get nasty.
Those are fighting words.
I'm cheering for them too. It's just not helping me.
General Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much. That was very thoughtful and I appreciate it. They're beautiful photos from a year. I know that year plus that everyone will remember. Thank you.
All right. Executive or Director Woods, back to you. Do you have anything else you want to report on at this time?
Nope, I'm just looking forward to Mr. Schuba's report at 12:15, and I think you will be too. Just a lot of great information, but also hearing directly from Michiganders regarding the success of the commission validates a lot of your work. And so I'm just happy that will be the last thing on the agenda as a result of this efficient meeting. So thank you very much and appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Reinhardt, did you have a report you wanted to give, a brief one possibly?
A report.
No report, okay.
Oh,
So,
excuse me, Madam Chair.
yes.
Just a friendly reminder for those of you who have not responded to good marketing, if you can do so. We are trying to finish our lessons learned report, and they've sent out invitations to interview commissioners. And if you have not responded, if you can respond so that we can meet our timelines. And then they're also working on the commission report. And as you know, we gave an extra week for descending reports. For descending reports, it's an extra week. So just want to remind those that are eligible to submit descending reports that they're due next week. They're due next week. And then we will have a draft to present to the commission in 2 weeks. And our goal is to have the final copy done by the end of March as it relates to the commission report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Lett?
I would encourage anybody who's considering not doing that interview to reconsider. It's a very comfortable space in which to do the interview and allows you to give your thoughts on what's good, what could be improved, etc. It was a very comfortable and a very affirming interview to work with good marketing.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett. All right, at this time, it is 10:52. We are supposed to begin a closed session at 11 a.m. In accordance with section 6.2.5 of the MICRC Rules of Procedure and for purposes not inconsistent with the court's opinion in the Detroit News, Inc. versus Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, docket number 163823, and pursuant to resolution 2022-0201 adopted February 10, 2022. A closed session of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission is called to begin Thursday, February 24th, 2022 at 11 a.m. with its attorneys being General Counsel Julianne Pastula, as well as representatives from local counsel Think Bresic LLC and litigation counsel Baker Hostetler LLP for the purposes of discussing pending litigation being Banarian versus Benson at sequential USDC West Michigan case number 1:22CB54 and the League of Women Voters of Michigan versus Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, Michigan Supreme Court docket number 164022. The online streaming of the open meeting will resume at the conclusion of the closed session. And we will all now move to the closed session with the start time being 11 a.m. So that gives people a few minutes to get up and stretch their legs if they would like to do so. Commissioner Witches and then Commissioner Rothhorn.
I was going to say Director Woods was waving his hands.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to remind the public that we are looking for improve MICRC. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please go to the public comment portal and submit your improvements. We're accepting that all the way through the end of this month. We want to ensure that the public is also included in the lessons learned. Once again, the public by more than 61% empowered the commission, and it would only be right if the public provided suggestions on how we can improve. If you do not have access to the internet, you can mail it at MICRC, PO Box 30318, Lansing, Michigan 48909. Once again, if you need to mail it to us, MICRC, PO Box 30318, Lansing, Michigan 48909. If we want to improve the process and make it better, it will take the public to be included. So we encourage you to submit your comments as quickly as possible, but we're doing this through Monday, February 28th. Thank you so much.
All right, anything else? Commissioner Witches, are you saying something?
Sorry, I had lost my mouse. I don't see a Zoom invite for the closed session. I could just be missing it.
Sarah did, I did ask and she did send it out, but it came, I think it might have even been after the meeting started. So just check your inbox again. It should be in there. But it was definitely this morning, and I think it might have even been once we'd already began. So
That's correct.
okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. All right. See you guys in 5 minutes. Aaron was. Sarah, do we have enough people on to start?
Yes, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would like to call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission back to order. Will the Department of State please call the roll?
Commissioners, please stay present when I call your name. And also please disclose where you are attending remotely from. Excuse me. I'll call on commissioners in alphabetical order, starting with Doug Clark.
Present, and I'm joining the meeting from Huntington Beach, California.
Juanita Curry. Anthony Eade. Anthony, I see you in the meeting. If you're talking, you might still be muted. We can return to Commissioner Eade. Brittany Kellum.
Present and attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan.
Rhonda Lang. Steve Lett.
Present and attending from Lee County, Florida.
Cynthia Orton.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
MC Rothhorn. Rebecca Zatella.
Present, attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan.
Janice Follett.
Present, attending from Highland, Michigan.
Aaron Wagner.
Present, attending remotely from Eaton County, Michigan.
Richard Weiss.
Present, attending remotely from Saginaw Township, Saginaw, Michigan.
Dustin Witches.
Present, attending remotely from Howell, Michigan.
And I'll return to Anthony Eade.
Present, remotely attending from Detroit, Michigan.
10 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. All right, we will pick up where we left off, moving on to new business agenda item 6, what is now E, Glenn Gariff Group Michigan Voter Survey. Without objection, I will ask our Communications Outreach Director, Edward Woods III, to provide information about this item. Please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, commissioners. Happy to present to you the president of the Glenn Gariff Group, Richard Schuba, who is no stranger to us. As you know, he did our pre-survey and now he's back to do our post-survey. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Schuba to the dais, or I should say the podium in this virtual space. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me back. What I'd like to do is go through the post-survey that we conducted. Just as a reminder, as a pollster, I'm the geek who has to remind everybody, this is a 600 sample survey. It is a live operator. It is of registered Michigan voters. It was conducted February 11th through the 14th. Has a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. 25% of the interviews were conducted on a landline telephone. 75% were conducted on cell phone telephones. So what I'd like to do is go through the key results here and try to provide a little context dating back to the benchmarking survey we presented in the spring to you. Let's start with just the basic question of what percentage of voters actually knew something about redistricting changes occurring in Michigan. In the post survey, that is 41%. 58% of the voters did not know anything. That's actually a decline from the benchmarking survey. And it's about a 12% drop from last spring. But I think we need to look a little deeper to understand where that shift occurred. We asked the question of voters, how engaged are you in the political process? And it's not going to surprise anybody, but only 20% said they are very engaged. 58% said they're somewhat engaged. 16% said they're not really engaged, and 6% said they're not engaged at all. The shift in awareness occurred amongst those people who are just somewhat engaged, which is a very large group of 58%. what we saw was amongst those who are very engaged in the political process, there was no statistical change in their knowledge or familiarity with the redistricting changes in Michigan. But amongst those who are somewhat engaged, it dropped from 53 to 44%. And I think that can be attributed to the fact that the further you are from an event that a voter participates in, i.e. the 2018 election where they voted, the more distant it becomes to them, unless you are very engaged in the process. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. We asked those voters if they've heard of the commission itself. And 35% of overall Michigan voters have heard of the commission. That is an increase from the benchmarking survey. It's about an 11% increase. But if you are aware of redistricting changes in general, 82% of those voters are aware of the commission. We saw your awareness of the commission amongst the very engaged increase from 33.7% to 52%. Amongst those who are somewhat engaged, the awareness of the commission itself went from 23% to 36%. And if you're not at all engaged, there was no change in your awareness of the commission. So where the commission increased its awareness was amongst those people who are very engaged. And as we go through these survey results, I think you'll see that those are the people who were most engaged with you, who participated the most. And I don't think, given my experience in polling in Michigan, I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody that there is a narrow band of individuals, of voters in this state, who are highly engaged in the political process. I think one of the interesting differences I saw here amongst those voters who are aware of the commission was amongst strong Democratic voters and independent voters. We saw double-digit increases in your awareness, but amongst those strong Republican voters, there was only a 3% increase in the awareness of the commission. I think one of the themes I saw in this is that even those strong Republican voters who are very engaged in the process did not, we'll see in the numbers, were not overly engaged with the commission itself in the way that independents and Democrats were. So I'm going to, as we move forward, one of the things we did was we asked people who were aware of the redistricting process a whole series of questions. If you were not even aware of the process, it didn't make sense to ask questions of them where they knew nothing about redistricting. So they were screened out of a series of questions. We asked those people, and I'll call them the aware voters. We asked those aware voters what their opinion was of the commission itself, whether it was positive or negative. And 50.8% have no opinion. They've heard of you, they may have been following you, but they don't have an opinion of what the commission has done. But 34% had a positive opinion versus only 12% who had a negative opinion. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. For those who know something, could form an opinion, they had a good opinion of you, of what the work the commission has done. We asked in an open-ended question, and it's in the report, I know it's been given to you. If they said positive, we wanted to know why it was positive. If it was negative, we wanted to know why it was negative. We've coded their responses in the report. You can go look at those. Frankly, it's not unusual to see these responses, and we coded them in the language they use. I think that's important to know that we didn't make up this language. That's the language they were offering us. But 34% of these respondents had a positive reaction. And that's the number one reason at 27% was they believe the commission is fair and unbiased. Conversely, only 12% of respondents had a negative perception. And the number one answer there is, it was kind of two answers that split these folks. One was they thought the commission was not doing a good job. And the second was they thought the maps were not fair. But again, that's 12% of these respondents. So we asked these aware voters whether they approve or disapprove of the work the commission has done. For those respondents that were aware, 34% approve of the performance, 18% disapprove. Again, 48% aware of the commission, could not offer an opinion on the commission's performance. Not surprisingly, I think those respondents who are most engaged in the political process were the ones most likely to offer an opinion. And amongst those very engaged in the political process, they approved by a margin of 38 to 26. But even there, 36% did not offer an opinion or could not offer an opinion. That was the highest level of disapproval at only 26%. As you go down through the rest of these voters, it drops precipitously into the teens for disapproval. Those who are somewhat engaged approved by a margin of 35 to 16, but 49% could not offer an opinion. We asked these aware voters how closely they were paying attention to the work of the commission. 8.1% of them said they paid very close attention. That represents overall 3.5% of the state's population or the state's voters. 51% of aware voters said they paid some attention. That represents 22% of all of the state's voters. So those who are paying very or some attention overall represents 1/4 of the state's voters. When we look at that, how close you were paying attention, again, it's the very engaged. 71% of them were paying very or some attention to your work. If you're somewhat engaged, only 59%. And then it drops if you're not very engaged in the political process, but were aware, only 26% were paying attention to the work. And if you're not engaged at all, only 20%. So again, what we see repeatedly here is that the voters who are most engaged in the political process were the ones paying attention. And I don't think that's a surprise to anybody as you look at these numbers. So in the benchmarking survey we did last spring, we asked voters what was most important to them, which elements of what you were doing as a commission was most important to them. And we came back to those. And on those very important elements, we asked the voters who were aware of your work to tell us if they disapprove or approve of your performance on each of those metrics. There were 7 different metrics. And I can say that on all 7, at least a plurality approved of the work of the commission on all 7 metrics. There was, in 5 of the 7, a majority of those voters approved. And let me start with the first 3 metrics, because they all come in at 60 and 61% approval, compared to only 17 to 19% disapproval. And those are making sure that the commission designed the districts rather than politicians. The approval of the commission came in at 61-17. Making sure neither party gets an unfair advantage by gerrymandering districts. The approval came in at 61-19. And the third, making sure that Michigan voters, not elected officials, have input in designing new districts. The commission showed approval at 60% to 18%. That level of approval, while decreases a little bit on the next couple, 57 to 20, making sure maps were designed in public view so that all sides could watch the deliberations. 55 to 20, making sure that citizens had input into the design of the new districts through public meetings, public comment portal, the mapping portal that allowed everyone to make comments about the maps. Those are really strong numbers, frankly, on those 5 metrics. The voters who were aware of you on these metrics gave you strong scores. The scores decreased a little, and it wasn't a decrease in positive or negative. It was a decrease in the number who could make an opinion even on the question of making sure communities with common historical and cultural economic interests are put in districts together instead of divided to weaken their voices. It's the communities of interest metric. And on that, it was 48 to 19, 22% could not provide an answer. And then the final metric, making sure the commission was transparent in how they made decisions. 46% approved, but 29% disapproved. This was the metric with the highest disapproval rating at 29%. One of these metrics I feel I really need to point out, because we saw a very large statistical difference amongst one demographic group, and that was on the communities of interest metric. As I mentioned, that came in at 48 to 19, 22% just didn't know. But there was a very statistically significant difference between Caucasian and African American voters on this one. If you are a Caucasian voter, you rated the commission 53 to 14 in approval, but African American voters rated the commission 31 to 54 disapprove on the community of interest metric. And I feel I need to point that out. So let's take a look at where they were following you and how they were following it, interacting with the commission. Again, we're talking about the aware voters. 80% of them followed you on the news media. 28%, that represents 10% of the voters. We're looking at the commission's website. And let me say, for a website that's been up for less than a year, to have 10% of the voters say they've looked at your website, I think that deserves some congratulations. I think it's the very engaged voters who we see. 44% of those people who are very engaged in the process said they have looked at your website. And I think that's really an interesting number that stuck out to me. People who said they viewed a virtual or in-person presentation was 20% of aware voters. That represents 6.8% of the population. 13% watched a meeting online of aware voters. That's just over 4% of the general population, of the voter population. 8% of the aware voters provided public comment before the commission or submitted written comments. And only 2.9% of aware voters attended one of the meetings. But if we look at those who are very engaged in the process, the numbers shift dramatically here. Those who are very engaged, 29% were part of an online meeting. 8% attended a public hearing. 44% looked at your website, as I mentioned before. 18% provided comment. 35% viewed you virtually. I think in this environment, that 35% who viewed you virtually of the very engaged voters talks about the importance of putting these meetings up and online. But as you look at those who are less engaged, you will see drastically lower levels of engagement amongst them. One other thing I want to point out, and I mentioned this earlier, while Republicans and Democrats were nearly equal in their viewing through online meetings or using the website, Democratic voters were significantly more likely to either attend a public meeting or offer comment. So in terms of how they were engaging you, Democrats were more likely to engage you in that fashion. Let's talk about engagement on social media. We asked a series of, were you engaged in any of these with the commission? 51.5% of aware voters did not engage in any way on social media, on any of the platforms. 26% engaged on Facebook. 18% engaged with the mapping portal, your online mapping portal. 12% engaged with the public comment portal. 11% on Twitter, 10% on YouTube, and 8% on Instagram. That's the aware voters. If you look at those who are very engaged, which again were the people who were interacting with the commission, 36% on Facebook, 22% with the mapping portal, 21% public comment, the public comment portal, 18% on Twitter, 21% on Instagram. But again, it was the very engaged people. And when it comes to social media, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. The younger the respondent, the more likely they engaged with you via social media in some form. For example, if you were 18 to 29 and paying attention, only 36% did not use social media. If you're over 65 and engaged with the commission, nearly 60% did not use social media. It's an important difference here. We asked these aware voters if they recall seeing or hearing any advertisements. 34.9%, so 35% do recall seeing or hearing an advertisement, 16% on television, 13% internet, 11% on the radio, 5% on newspaper, 1.6% through billboards. One of the really interesting things I see in these numbers is despite higher levels of Democratic and independent engagement, traditional Republican voters were the most likely to have seen or heard something in terms of an advertisement. So they were seeing it and hearing it, they just weren't necessarily engaging. And I think that's an interesting finding here. So let me get down to some of the kind of bottom line numbers here, because we came back and we asked these aware voters, did the commission succeed or fail in giving Michigan citizens a greater role than the politicians in designing the districts? And by a margin of 50 to 22, better than 2 to 1, they said the commission did succeed. But again, 28% of these aware voters could not even offer an opinion. We asked these aware voters what recommendations they have moving forward for the commission to improve the process. And the overwhelming number one answer at 27% was helping keep people be more involved, keeping them informed, being more involved. We do a lot of this kind of work for government organizations to help them test pre and post advertising. And it's always the number one issue that comes back. Well, you should do more. You should spend more. You should, I didn't see anything. So obviously you weren't doing anything. Even though we know you were, in this case, I think it speaks to how difficult it is to reach voters. You frankly need very large budgets. And I think, we have a lot of experience across government that it takes a lot of money to motivate, reach out, and talk to voters. And that's not always available, frankly. So at the end of the survey, we came back and we asked all voters whether they were aware of the Redistricting Commission or not. We asked all voters whether or not Michigan should continue to allow the commission to redraw the state's maps, or should we go back to allow elected representatives in the state legislature to redraw the maps? And there's no contest here. By a margin of 65 to 10, Michigan voters say the commission should continue to do this work. And if they are aware of the commission and aware of the work you've done, by a margin of 80 to 5, those voters say the commission should continue to do the work. And I want to point out here, this is across the political spectrum. And it is Democrats, it is independents, it is Republicans. More than a majority of every partisan affiliations says the commission should continue to do this work. And I think, let me just say, I do a lot of this. I've been doing it for a long time. I just want to throw some kudos your way for being willing to publicly judge yourself in this fashion by going back to the voters and asking them what they think, I think these numbers to some degree show the challenge of any public entity to reach and motivate voters. And that's reflected in these numbers. But what I also see in these numbers is that those who are aware of what you were doing by pretty significant margins approved of what you were doing with some exceptions. And with that, I'll be happy to take questions.
All right, commissioners, anybody have any questions? Commissioner Eid.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you for this analysis. I agree that it is important to look at where we started to where we ended. But one of the first statistics you let off was that overall engagement, or not engagement, but overall the number of people that have heard of us have went down. Was that a statistically significant correlation from the prior survey, or do you just attribute it to being a different group of people surveyed?
No, that is a statistically significant drop. It is a 12% drop. The margin of error is plus or minus 4%. So there was a drop overall amongst voters, in voters overall, who were aware of the redistricting changes in Michigan. And as I said, I think we can attribute that partially to those who are not aware, those who are not engaged and don't closely follow politics or government. The further away they became from their interaction, which was the actual vote, the less aware they were of the change that was made. It speaks to the difficulty any entity has in reaching voters who simply just aren't daily engaged. And I remind people every day, a lot of us live and breathe this kind of work every day. There's a whole lot of voters who just, their engagement is to come in and vote, and then they move on with their lives. And I think that's part of the example here of the commission's work. Their engagement was to make the decision, and a lot of them just simply moved on with their lives. But 25%, they stayed engaged. They stayed engaged in what you were doing.
Okay, any other questions? You guys are quiet today. All right. Edward, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Nope, I'd just like to thank Mr. Schuber for coming on and alert the public that we will be doing a press conference at 2:00 p.m. And Mr. Schuber will go in detail and also will be available to answer questions from members of the press with regards to this data. This virtual press conference will be available on our Facebook channel, and then we will upload it to our YouTube channel. Once again, taking place at 2:00 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Schuber, for coming and joining us today. And I just think echo the great news by a margin of 65.5% to 10.1%. That's more than 6 times. Michigan voters say the state should continue with you, the MICRC. So kudos to you for your outstanding job and fine work that you have done in this inaugural process of creating maps for Michigan's congressional, state Senate, and state house districts.
Thank you, Mr. Woods and Mr. Schuba. All right, at this point, we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is correspondence. Correspondence received in advance of our meeting today was provided along with written public comments to the commissioners in our meeting materials. In addition to the items discussed on the meeting agenda today, agenda items for the March 10th meeting will include the election of a chair and a vice chair. Are there any other agenda items that commissioners would like to have added to future agendas? Commissioner Eid?
Yeah, can we add a discussion to increase the public comment allotted time back to 2 minutes?
You're kind of cutting in and out, but I think you wanted to consider increasing public comment time to 2 minutes. Is that right? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay. Yeah, Executive Director Hammersmith, can we add that to the next agenda item? Good. All right, Commissioner Witches?
I gotta, just in regards to that, is that something we can handle right now? Because I'm in favor of that as well.
I mean, we
And-
certainly could. We could have a motion and a vote on it right now. We have enough
Yeah,
people.
I think I'm gonna do that. I think that Mr. Gallant made some good suggestions and points, saying that the amount of public comment has indeed gone down significantly.
Yeah.
3 minutes, I believe, is a little too high. I believe 2 minutes is fair. So with that said, I'll make a motion to increase the public comment time to 2 minutes moving forward.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Witches to increase the public comment time to 2 minutes moving forward. I see a second by Commissioner Weiss. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Commissioner Lett?
I'm not in favor of that. I think we have seen from our experience that whether you have 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 1 minute, whatever point you want to get across can be gotten across in 1 minute. I think that has been proved out by the numerous comments we've already received.
Okay, any additional comments? General Counsel?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It looks like the timing for the public comment is set forth in the rules. So that would need to go through the notice. So it would be appropriate to provide the notice orally at this meeting to be acted upon at the next meeting. It is in section 12.1, subpart D of the rules of procedure.
Okay, in light of that, Commissioner Witches, would you like to withdraw your motion and we'll just treat it as a notice?
Yep, that works for me. I'll withdraw my motion.
All right, any other future agenda items? Okay, are there any announcements?
I just, again, want to thank Julianne for all of her hard work, and I wish her all the best in her future endeavor.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Witches. All right, and as items on the agenda are completed and the commission has no further business, a motion to adjourn is in order. I have Commissioner Witches, thank you very much.
Commissioner Curry's hand was up, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Curry, did you have an announcement? Or were you
No,
gonna make the motion?
Not a motion or an announcement. I just want to thank Julianne for all of the things she has helped me with, and wish her the most success wherever she goes.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Witches. Can we get a second? Seconded by Commissioner Weiss. We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise
Aye.
your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the meeting is adjourned at 12:50 p.m. Thank you, everybody.